So most people in long-term marriages who want to improve things with their partner are often using strategies that are actually breaking the connection in the relationship, whether they're aware of it or not. I have seen this time and time again in my practice. The one partner is trying to do the best they can to rebuild the connection, all the while quietly sabotaging and widening the gap between them and their partner. So today, I wanted to break down 5 losing strategies that keep couples in long-term marriages stuck in disconnection cycles, and 5 winning strategies in order to improve the connection in their relationship with their partner. My name is Eric McDougall. I'm the co-host of the Evolved Marriage podcast with my wife, Kate. I'm a certified RLT coach who trained under Terry Real. And here on this channel, we don't have any therapy. We're all about training and helping long-term couples create change and bring back passion and pleasure to their marriages. So let's start with the first losing strategy. I call this one being right. So think about the last argument you'd had with your partner, right? So much of it is trying to convince them of your perspective. I get it, right? We believe that if we can convince our partner and we can feel understood, get them to believe what we're believing, then we're on the same page, they'll be on board, and eureka, we have the fantasy we want. Sadly, our partner is on the other side trying to do the exact same thing, whether it's through defensiveness, it's through the tit for tat back and forth, whether it's even just shutting down. What they are trying to do is they are trying to either be right or prove that they are not wrong. Now, you get to decide in relationship, in those tense moments, whether you want to be right or whether you want to be connected. Because the reason that being right doesn't actually work is because in order for somebody to be right, somebody has to be wrong. And if one person is not ready to admit that they're wrong, they are going to resist and back away from the connection of the person who is trying to make them wrong. And I've seen this time and time again in long-term marriages. And if this continues, right, you're trying to prove your point to your partner, you're just going to continue pushing them away. And so we're going to talk about winning strategies later, but I wanted to move on to the second losing strategy, which is controlling your partner. Now, no matter how many times I hear, well, I can't control her, can't control my partner, we as individuals spend so much time trying to coerce, trying to influence, trying to get our partner to do what we want them to do through all kinds of creative ways. Think about this. This is one thing that I often see. Maybe it's a man or a woman and they want their partner to step up in the relationship, right? They want to unload some of this mental bandwidth. So they're saying, hey, you got to take on dinners. You got to start doing that kind of stuff. So let's say inevitably the man steps up and he starts making dinner. But maybe he's not used to it. So it's clunky. It's different. He's trying. He's feeding his kid Kraft dinner instead of broccolis and whole wheat pasta. And so what inevitably happens is the other partner steps in and corrects. And through that action, the other partner feels criticized, feels like they're not enough, feels like they're doing it wrong. And over time, what this can do, it can actually prevent them from actually ever wanting to step up in the first place. And so if you're trying to get your partner to do something through coercion, through convincing, through proving something to them, they're going to feel controlled. And if we as humans feel controlled, we inevitably have a resistance to that and back away. And that's why it continues to lead us into disconnection cycles, which do not keep us together. The third one is what I call unbridled self-expression, right? This is like the emotional dumping. And this is really tough, right? Because I've seen so many people in therapist offices, in their practice, just allow one partner to unload. They're like, oh, this is good. Keep going, keep allowing it to happen. And they're essentially enabling people to unload all of their experience onto their partner. And they're telling their partner, you got to be able to hold space for them. You got to be able to give them the opportunity to share their grievances. But what they're not understanding is that sometimes that emotional dump actually can be mean, can be hurtful, can really push another partner further away, and it's not relational. And so we kind of like champion this idea of like, yeah, I'm being outspoken. I'm talking about my needs. And I think talking about your needs, talking about your fears, talking about your pain, that's important. And you want to be able to share that with your partner. But this is a nuance in how you share it. So many of us, instead of sharing how we feel, We make up stories, we blame our partners, we do all kinds of stuff that's mean and hurtful and pushes them further away. And this is the idea of unbridled self expression, right? You have to be responsible for the message. That's your part. But I've seen so many times being like, well, it's not my problem if my partner can't understand me. That's their problem. Well, the reality is, how's that working for you? Because the reality is, you're probably feeling pretty misunderstood because you're unwilling to change your messaging to work with your partner so that you can feel understood. And that's why this idea of unbridled self expression is a losing strategy. Now, the fourth losing strategy is what's called retaliation. Now, so many people do this in such a passive aggressive way. Like, this is like eye for an eye, right? It's like hurting your partner, but in like a way where you're not taking really responsibility. My wife and I, we call this like jabbing, right? So it's like, I'm hurt, so I'm going to hurt you. So maybe it's like, you didn't clean up the dishes like I asked you to, so I'm going to withhold love and give you the cold shoulder, right? Or the man, he's like, you're not having sex with me, so I'm going to ignore you and just spend my time watching football every weekend. Right? And so this is the idea of like retaliation. You're like, I'm hurt, so I'm going to hurt back. And this is like part of the human behavior narrative, right? Like that's kind of what we do. This idea of eye for an eye. So many of us think that's champion. And sometimes we even like justify it. Like, oh, I'm just like, don't want to cause conflict. I don't want to pressure them. So we're just giving them the cold shoulder and we're avoiding them. And really, deep down, you're actually trying to hurt them because you're hurt. And we know this. Hurt people hurt people. And so, therefore, retaliation is definitely a losing strategy. And this one can be insidious because oftentimes neither partner is willing to admit to doing it. While when you look at the relationship, they are constantly hurting each other and retaliating from that place of pain. Now, the fifth one is one that, I'm pretty familiar with, which is withdrawal. Now, this is a protection strategy. Really, all of these are protection strategies. But withdrawal is one that can be really harmful in a relationship. When your partner is trying to reach you, or when you're trying to reach your partner and they are withdrawing or you're withdrawing, that is one of the most hurtful things that you can experience. One of the things I tell a lot of my clients is if you and your partner are getting into these conflict cycles, that's actually not the worst, right? Because it means that you're both passionate, there's something here worth fighting for. But what becomes really dangerous is when your partner is even unwilling to come to the table. And this is definitely a losing strategy for your relationship. And I've seen people do this out of self protection, right? They're withdrawing because they feel ashamed. They don't want to cause a fight. They're conflict avoidant. They don't know how to deal with something. Or they withdraw from a place of retaliation, which is if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to close and shut the door to you. And this idea of withdrawing is so hurtful for the relationship because what it does, it's actually a really long decline of marital dissatisfaction because it doesn't happen all at once. It happens over years. And we actually start to normalize it, right? This is the idea of the roommate stalemate. We just think that's just is what it is. When you get older and we're like, this sex goes away, you feel disconnected, you're just being mom and dad. And how many people wake up, this is why it's called the gray divorce, right? Wake up as empty nesters and realize, I don't even know you anymore. So what's worth fighting for here? Well, that's because slowly over time, there's been this apathy and this withdrawal in the relationship that not only, because you did notice, it's just you didn't talk about it and you normalized it. So those are the five losing strategies, right? Needing to be right, controlling your partner, unbridled self-expression, retaliation, and withdrawal. So if you recognize yourself in one of these, listen, this is great. You have enough awareness to recognize yourself. So you can create change. It's actually a problem if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't do any of those, right? Because we all do these in some way or another because we learned to do this when we were very young in order to protect ourselves. I do it. My wife does it. You do it. Everybody does it. Welcome to being human. So here's what we want to be doing instead. Here are the 5 winning strategies we want to start moving towards in order to improve the connection in our relationship and stop those unhealthy conflict cycles that are just keeping you in gridlock. So the first is you want to shift from complaint to request. So it's kind of this weird thing in our society now where most of the time when we try to get what we want, we do it by criticizing others, by directing, by correcting, by talking down to them because we think that's going to create change. Right? It's this idea of like saying like, hey, you didn't do good enough, so you better improve. And I get it. Making a request is vulnerable. Sometimes even, I use the example of my wife, Kate, all the time is her request, the way she requests wanting to spend time together is by asking me what I'm planning for tonight. She's saying, "Hey, what are you planning for tonight? What are you doing tonight? What's your plan for tonight?" And so that's a moment that I had to recognize, but that's a moment of her bidding and saying, "I want to spend time with you." But it's almost too vulnerable for her to say that. So what does she do? She checks in. She sees if I have plans. So if I'm like, "Yeah, I'm just planning on, going for a walk and watching a bit of TV." She's like, "Oh, I guess Eric doesn't have time to spend time with me." Instead of making an actual request and allowing me the opportunity to provide that for her or not. And so what happens inevitably is days later, she might come to me and say, "You spend too much time doing this. We never spend time together, etc.," which is just a complaint. And so start thinking about this in your own relationship. How many times are you just complaining? Maybe not even to your partner, maybe just about your partner, about your relationship, about your circumstances, as opposed to making a very specific request to your partner to provide something for you that benefits you that they can answer yes, no, or an alternative to. Okay, so shifting from complaint to request is like a superpower in relationships because it allows your partner to provide that for you. The next thing is you want to start speaking from the I. I see so many couples hide behind the we. We do this, we want this, we do that. But actually, you want to start thinking about I, right? I want this. So I feel lonely, not I feel disconnected, not we feel disconnected, right? Maybe your partner agrees that they feel disconnected as well, therefore we feel disconnected. But start using the I statements. Share your experience. Stop making these blanket statements about the we. The we includes you and your partner, and that's created in collaboration with them. And so typically when you use the we, you would check in. You would say, hey, I'm feeling kind of like this. I'm feeling a bit disconnected. I'm feeling a bit lonely. What's your experience of our relationship lately? And they might say, it feels great. I love hanging out with my buddies all the time and doing fun stuff. I love coming home and you making dinner. I feel awesome. Well, now there's like a mismatch, right? Because you feel lonely. Your partner's just been made aware of your loneliness. Now they have an opportunity to do something because you can request it. But without speaking from the I, if you're just like, "Hey, we've been feeling really disconnected lately," your partner might be like, has no option but to say, "Yes, we have," or "No, we haven't." And if they haven't been feeling disconnected, they're going to say, "No, they haven't." And immediately you start getting into a conflict again about who's right and who's wrong. So start speaking from the I statements. Use that and really think about how you're speaking because for a lot of us, we don't use I. We talk about you, we talk about we, and we talk about these blanket statements of the relationship should be like this. People should act like this. Married couples should be like this. None of that is an I statement. The next one is lead with vulnerability. Now, we talk about the vulnerability threshold in my practice, right? Above the vulnerability threshold, so many people are talking about what they want and what they don't want, what needs to change and what needs to keep being the same. But underneath all of that, there are fears, there are aspirations, there's all kinds of emotions that are being targeted based on how you're experiencing reality. And the way that we connect as humans is by going below the vulnerability threshold, by talking about our fears, by talking about our aspirations. So this is a big part in my own relationship with Kate, my wife, is that we had to learn to go below the vulnerability threshold in order to understand and collaborate with each other. If we were talking about stuff, the kids' schedules, how we felt disconnected, what was wrong with our marriage, how we weren't having enough sex, how we never spent time together, that's all above. But when Kate mentioned what was below, which is, I feel lonely, I miss you, I'm scared to talk about this with you because I'm afraid of how you'll react, right? These are real experiences that as humans, we tend to relate to the most. And it takes courage to be vulnerable. That's why a lot of us don't do it because we're just behind our walls in self protection. And so start thinking about leading with vulnerability and make sure you're leading with it in a clean way. Again, this is not emotional dumping. This is just an assertive, kind, loving openness that you can allow your partner to respond to in whatever way they want. The fourth one is accountability and repair. Now, I've seen so many marriages have no accountability. And I want to push back on this idea too that like women don't have accountability. I hear this a lot. Women aren't accountable. Only men are accountable. What a bunch of baloney. Listen, human beings are accountable to things. My wife is able to show up to work on time because she's accountable to it. My wife is able to follow through on commitments because she's accountable to it. What's this idea like, oh, she's in her masculine? Like, what a bunch of baloney. We as humans have the ability to be accountable. A lot of times, what's preventing us from being accountable is some sort of adaptation. It's a fear. There's a reason that we're not following through on our commitments. And you have to decide for yourself, instead of constantly trying to manage your partner and get them to follow through on their commitments, you have to start thinking about the commitments that you're following through. And when you break that commitment, you want to repair. And I've seen a lot of relationships who not only have no accountability, they have no repair. They have been having this same argument for 10 years and have never repaired it. They don't even know what that means. What do you mean repair? That's like we have to solve the problem. No, it's when you hurt each other, how do you come together again? Because if you're looking for resolution, which is solving the problem, that will never happen without repair. Because if you're both behind your walls, you're not going to be open to collaboration. And so think about this, right? Are you accountable to what you say? Be honest with yourself. Are you repairing when you messed up? If there's a breach in the relationship, are you repairing? Because relationships are a constant cycle of harmony, disharmony, and repair. That's how it goes over and over and over again. So you will be in disharmony. You will have to repair if you want to get back into harmony. But so many couples hang out in this kind of low grade disharmony their whole relationship. And that can really eat at the core and the bonding in a marriage. Now, the last one is cherishing. And cherishing means different things for different people, right? But this is like actively appreciating your partner, right? So many of us just take our partners for granted. Often we don't even see them anymore as like this full human being. We just see them as like the core negative image, right? We see them as maybe this wife who's just critical and angry and anxious all the time and withholding love from us. Or this husband who's aloof and forgetful and misunderstands us and is just logical and can't connect to his own feelings. And so we create this caricature of our partner that then we relate to. But we have to expand that and start to see them for who they are, the complete sense of self. And yeah, sure, sometimes Kate sees me as that person that messes up because I did screw up. I screwed up. I got angry. I raised my voice, right? I made a mistake. These things happen. But when I come to repair, if Kate's just like sitting in that moment of like, oh, Eric's just this person that I can't trust, who's always angry, who's always good, she's not going to want to repair that version of me. And so she has to choose to cherish me in that moment. She has to choose to say, Eric made a mistake. Eric's coming back to repair. I appreciate his repair. Yes, it's hard. Yes, he hurt me, but I appreciate him opening up and coming back and having this hard discussion. And not only do you want to do this, secretly and in your mind, but you want to do this outwardly. So many of us, stopped appreciating our partners outwardly. Nothing feels better though. My wife tells people how awesome I am and vice versa. And we see it as boasting or throwing it in people's face. Stop that. You need to appreciate your partner more often. You need to cherish them. And if the relationship is not being actively appreciated, if your partner's not being actively appreciated, right, they're going to start questioning how much you do appreciate them. And for you men out there, especially, I hear this all the time. She knows how much I love her. No, she doesn't always know that. Sometimes she questions that love. And you have an opportunity to remind her. And so that's the 5 winning strategies, right? Shifting from complaint to request, speaking from the I, leading with vulnerability, accountability and repair, and then cherishing. Now, that's the starting point. If you want more help with this, I have a totally free resource for you that you can grab. It's called the Connection Blueprint. It's just links below. It's a free guide, talks about the different cycles of disconnection that you create and how to overcome them so you and your partner can be connected again. And I'd love it if you could subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a video where we talk about everything in long-term marriages and how to bring the passion, the connection, the playfulness back to you and your partner. Cheers.